Soulful Sunday.
In the 96.1, we are back with Hamish from Apollo Power Yoga. And what did you want to talk about today, Hamish?
I wanted to talk about karma today.
Oh, okay. A lot of people might not actually know what karma is. Do you think you'd be able to describe it in a couple of words?
Well, I'll ask you, do you have a general idea? Are you able to encapsulate karma in...
Well, my thought of is that all actions have like another action that can come back to you. I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, that's awesome. That's a fantastic starting point for discussion. What I should say about karma is that karma shows up in a lot of Eastern-based religions, in Hinduism, in Jainism, in Buddhism, in Sikhism, elsewhere as well. And it has different colours and different meanings and different shades upon whom you're talking to. And so what I offer today is just my distillation, my understanding, which comes from, a pretty narrow field. I'm not familiar widely with all those religions and the different versions within them. But just from a general sense, and drawing, in this instance, from the Bhagavad Gita, which is an ancient epic poem from India, in which advice is given about living right. And two types of yoga are discussed in the Bhagavad Gita. One type is Jnana Yoga, which is the yoga of wisdom and study and contemplation. And the other is Karma Yoga, which is the yoga of action and doing. And in that context, karma relates to actions, deeds. And then karma can have the more expanded definition that you suggested, where there is cause and effect, there is action and consequence, there are sequelae for one's behavior. And what lies at the root of that is that people have desires, and their desires stir their will, and their will initiates their behaviors, and their behaviors, well, we reap what we sow. And within that context, we start to get into the ethical and moral element of karma, in that if you behave in a good way, there will be good sequelae. If you behave in a bad way, in an immoral or dishonest way or whatever, you will get that sort of consequence flowing on. There's a really nice quote taken from Mohandas Gandhi, which I think encapsulates the notion of karma as we're talking about it. Gandhi says, keep your thoughts positive because your thoughts become your words. Keep your words positive because your words become your behavior. Keep your behavior positive because your behavior becomes your habits. Keep your your habits positive because your habits become your values. Keep your values positive because your values become your destiny. And that gets into that kind of notion of, sow the seeds of the future now in a positive way to create a good future for yourself.
So is it all about what you put out, you'll receive, in a way? That was sort of my understanding, that whatever you give, you'll get back.
Yeah, certainly there's an element of that. It's not like a question of judgment. So it's not like there is, for instance, in some Christian views with respect to afterlife and the constant concept of a day of judgment, a day of reckoning, in which your behavior on this earth will be subjected to scrutiny, and the fate of your soul will be determined upon whether you've been good or bad. It's not quite a judgment like that. It's more that, kind of like you say, Demi, what you do here now creates conditions for a future state. It's almost like there are immediate consequences for your actions and subsequent invisible consequences for your actions that only reveal themselves at a later stage. The immediate consequence, if Hamish goes around to the other side of the desk and hits someone in the face, there will be blood.
Yeah.
That's an immediate consequence. An invisible consequence is that Hamish gets this notion of himself as being violent, destructive, and being a violent, destructive person is condemned in society, and morally is seen as being wrong. And Hamish starts to develop the sense of being wrong, apart from society, not fitting in. And it's that kind of inner sense of self that starts to shape Hamish's future. And those invisible sequelae that have tangible consequences, those are in Sanskrit called samskara. It's kind of a psychic taint. What you do now colours your future. It forms your future by shaping a sense of who you are. And if you are a dishonest person, if you're a thief now, that will shape your sense of yourself and therefore the way that you show up in future life. And you kind of get back what you give off. You're right, Demi.
Is karma dependent on the sense of reincarnation or afterlife?
Many ideas of karma do involve the idea of an afterlife. And for those who believe in the transmigration of the soul, that it survives the death of the corporeal body in which we live, and is to be reinvested in a new body in a subsequent life. Some notions of karma say the way you lived life one and the way you finish that life is the way that you pick up life two. And so if you've been a thief and a bandit in life one, you will be born into a life of thievery and banditry in life two. And that's where that notion that you just mentioned, Demi, of kind of having free will and being able to choose your own path gives you power, because being born into a life of thievery and banditry doesn't mean that has to be. You have the power to say, this is not me, I'm going to make different choices, and I'm going to move in a different way. And so some notions of karma are very much connected to the afterlife. And that shows up in not just in the religions that I've mentioned, but St. Thomas Aquinas, who I believe lived in the 13th century, the 1200s, he was a Christian scholar, and he saw that people did not always get on earth their just deserts. The good and decent people didn't always get just rewards, and the cruel and the wicked weren't always, brought to heel and dealt with in a just fashion and punished for their wrong ways. And so for St. Thomas Aquinas, an afterlife was necessary for justice to be done. And some notions of karma kind of feel the necessity to be able to make amends for one life by starting again and rebuilding in a new life. But it doesn't need to be. Many theories of karma are confined just to this one corporeal life with no notion of the transmigration of the soul.
So, can you talk more about the moral aspect of karma in that retrospect? There's
a really nice Latin maxim that you get taught early on in studying criminal law. And the Latin maxim is actus non facit reus nisi mensit rea, which means that the act alone does not make for guilt unless your mind is also guilty. And that concept applies with respect to karma. And so the sense of will and intention in what you do contributes to the karma or the colour, the taint that attaches to your behaviour. So someone who is absolutely desperate, they have no work, no money, no help available, they're starving, and they go to a rich person's estate and they steal some food. The fact of their desperation, the fact that they have no other options, means that they're not a bad person, they're just seeking to provide the absolute basic minimum to live. But the white-collar criminal who has a gambling habit, for instance, and tries to sustain their gambling habit by committing fraud and extorting from clients or something of that nature, there is no moral justification for their behaviour, and so that carries a negative taint. Bad karma attaches to that, whereas no bad karma comes to the person who also steals, but steals for a completely different motivation. So karma theory is very much a theory that incorporates the ethical and the moral, and the choices that you make, the motive behind those choices, the intention accompanying them, contributes to the quality of the karma, the quality of the sequelae attaching to those actions.
That's interesting that you said that, because just yesterday I was on the phone to my sister and we were talking about something, and I was really worried about it, even though I knew it was a good thing, but I was worried how other people may perceive it or something. And she said to me, if you worry about it being a bad thing, then bad karma will come to me. But if I worry about it being good for what it was, then good stuff will come to me. Is that similar to what you've been mentioning?
Well, no, like I say, there's lots of different shades of karma, and maybe that's that's a way of viewing things. I don't know that you can say, I'm going to be utterly self-justifying in all this, and no matter how bad I am, simply by saying, it's for a good cause, it's for me, that's not going to create good karma. I think that the moral element of karma isn't your individual morality, but it's the mores of the time, and your context needs to be considered, not just your own personal output in respect of things.
Thank you so much again, Hamish, for popping in and talking to us this time about karma. We always find it very interesting, and it's lovely to also be able to listen back on the website as well, enva961.co.nz, and we look forward to hearing from you next week.
Wonderful. Thank you both very much.